The moment I saw my wife's laptop screen that rainy Wednesday evening, with messages from my business rival about their strategic session and instructions to wear that black thing, my entire world collapsed and transformed into a chessboard where I would orchestrate their complete destruction. My name is Mark Riley. At 42, I had reached what most would consider the pinnacle of success. Lead financial analyst at Sterling Corp, one of the top investment firms in the country. My reputation for seeing patterns in numbers that others missed had earned me both admiration and substantial financial rewards. Our sprawling 5-bedroom house in the most prestigious neighborhood stood as testament to my professional achievements. The sleek black Audi in the driveway complemented the Mercedes my wife drove. My life appeared perfect, meticulously constructed through years of dedication and strategic decision-making. Sarah and I met at Columbia Business School. While other students partied, we spent nights poring over case studies, pushing each other toward excellence. She was brilliant, ambitious, with a sharp mind that challenged mine at every turn. After graduation, our careers soared in parallel. Me climbing the ranks at Sterling, her becoming vice president of development at Nexus Logistics. For 12 years, we were the power couple everyone in our social circle envied, our marriage seemingly unshakable. Then I discovered the truth, and my perfect world shattered like crystal dropped onto concrete. The sound of that shattering still echoes in my mind sometimes, reminding me how quickly certainty can dissolve into chaos. It started with small things most men might overlook. Sarah began staying later at work, explaining her absences as preparation for the biggest contract of her career. Her phone, which used to lie carelessly around our house wherever she had last used it, was suddenly always screened down or tucked securely into her purse. New perfume appeared on our bedroom dresser, something with notes of jasmine and vanilla that seemed completely unlike her usual preference for light, citrus scents. New lingerie appeared in her drawer, delicate pieces in deep red and black that I had never seen her wear. I attributed all these changes to stress and perhaps a desire to feel better about herself amid the pressure of her demanding job. The possibility of infidelity never crossed my mind because I trusted her completely. The awakening came on that fateful Wednesday evening in late September. The air outside had just begun to turn crisp with approaching autumn, and rain tapped steadily against the windows of our home office. I was working remotely, analyzing data for a merger that could reshape the landscape of our industry. Sterling Corp and Apex Global were neck and neck in the race to acquire Innovitech, a rising tech company with revolutionary patents that could transform data processing for financial institutions worldwide. The acquisition would be worth billions, and the competition was fierce. I accidentally walked into our shared home office to grab my laptop charger and noticed Sarah had left in such a hurry that morning that she had forgotten to close her laptop. That was unusual for her. She was meticulous about security, always locking her computer when stepping away even for a moment. A messenger app was open on the screen. One name jumped out from the conversation list: David Wallace. David, the arrogant, shark-like chief strategy officer at Apex Global. My chief competitor. My heart began pounding against my rib cage. I stood frozen, hand halfway extended toward my charger, eyes fixed on the screen. My rational mind told me there could be innocent explanations. Perhaps they were discussing industry matters. Perhaps they had met at a networking event. Perhaps a mutual acquaintance had connected them. But deeper instincts warned me to look closer. With a shaking hand, I moved the mouse, opening the conversation thread. I didn't read the entire exchange. I couldn't bring myself to scroll through what might be there. The last message from him was enough. Can't wait for our strategic session on Friday. Same hotel, same room. Wear that black thing I like. The world tilted beneath my feet, the floor seeming to drop away. This wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage vows. It was treachery on every level, personal and professional. My chief competitor was sleeping with my wife during the biggest deal of my career. The implications were staggering. My emotions screamed at me to confront her immediately, to call her phone and unleash 12 years of suddenly betrayed trust in a torrent of rage. Part of me wanted to smash that laptop against the wall, to destroy the physical evidence of her betrayal as if that could somehow erase the reality of it. But something deeper, Something colder and more calculating took over. The analyst in me, the part that had made me successful in my career, stepped forward. Emotions are weakness in negotiations. I needed more information. I needed leverage. I needed a strategy. I quickly photographed the screen, careful not to disturb anything or leave evidence of my discovery. Then I closed the messenger window and left the laptop exactly as I had found it. For the next several hours, I sat in our living room, staring out at the rain, my mind working through scenarios with the same methodical precision I applied to financial projections. When Sarah came home around 8, I greeted her with a kiss and asked about her day as if nothing had changed. She talked about challenges with suppliers and upcoming presentations, lying to my face with practiced ease that made me wonder how long this deception had been going on. "You look tired," I said, studying her face for any sign of guilt. "It's been a brutal week," she replied, running her hand through her auburn hair. "This contract with Meridian Shipping is consuming all my energy." Another lie. Meridian Shipping was indeed one of Nexus Logistics' clients, but I now suspected her energy was being consumed elsewhere. Still, I nodded sympathetically. "Why don't you take a hot bath? I'll pour you some wine," I suggested. She looked momentarily surprised by my attentiveness before smiling. "That sounds heavenly." As she disappeared upstairs, I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon and drank it in one burning swallow. The game had begun. The next morning, after Sarah left for work, I called in sick for the first time in 5 years. Then I called Maxwell Investigations, a private detective agency recommended by a colleague who had gone through a similar situation years earlier. By noon, I was sitting across from Jack Maxwell himself, a former police detective with calculating eyes and a reassuring demeanor. "I need information, not confrontation," I explained, sliding the photographs of Sarah's messages across his desk. "I want to know how long this has been happening, and most importantly, if they're exchanging more than bodily fluids. I need to know if company information is being shared." Maxwell studied the images. "Industrial espionage angle complicates things," he said, looking up at me. "Makes the stakes much higher." "That's why I'm here instead of confronting her," I replied. "I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I make my next move." "Smart," Maxwell nodded. "We'll need to monitor both electronic communications and physical meetings. Phones, email accounts, movements. It won't be cheap." "Money isn't an issue," I said firmly. "Results are." 2 agonizing days later, Maxwell's comprehensive report landed in my secured email. The evidence was damning. Sarah and David had been meeting discreetly for nearly 4 months, primarily at the Archer Hotel downtown. Their affair had begun shortly after the Innovatech acquisition opportunity emerged. Maxwell's team had documented 7 instances where Sarah accessed my home server after their meetings, downloading files related to Sterling's acquisition strategy. The report included something else, information about David's wife, Emily Wallace, a corporate lawyer specializing in mergers and acquisitions at Blackwell Partners, one of the city's most prestigious law firms. According to Maxwell, there was no indication that Emily was aware of the affair. I studied the photograph of her included in the report. Dark hair cut in a sophisticated bob, intelligent eyes, an expression of confident composure even in a candid shot. I found her business number. That call was the hardest I've ever made. I rehearsed what I would say several times, trying different approaches, before finally dialing. My hand was steady, but my mouth felt dry as the phone rang 3 times. "Emily Wallace." Her voice was clear and professional. I took a deep breath. "Mrs. Wallace, my name is Mark Riley. I'm the lead financial analyst at Sterling Corp." A pause. "I believe we need to discuss a potential conflict of interest regarding your husband's company and my wife. It's an extremely delicate matter." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for an eternity. I could almost hear her mind working, connecting dots, perhaps already suspecting what this delicate matter might be. "I see," she finally said, her tone carefully controlled. "Where and when would you like to meet, Mr. Riley?" "Somewhere discreet. The Winston Bar at the Grand Hotel, perhaps. Tonight at 8? Another pause. "I'll be there. How will I recognize you?" "Blue suit, red tie. I'll get a corner table." "Very well. 8 o'clock. She hung up without further pleasantries. I spent the rest of the day in a state of focused tension, reviewing the evidence from Maxwell, preparing what I would say. At 7:30, I told Sarah I had a last-minute meeting with overseas investors. She barely looked up from her laptop, mentioning she would probably work late anyway. The ease of our mutual deception was disturbing. The Winston bar was dimly lit, with leather booths designed for privacy and conversation. I arrived early and secured a secluded corner booth, ordering a scotch I had no intention of finishing. At precisely 8 o'clock, Emily Wallace entered. She wore a charcoal gray suit that spoke of understated power, her movements deliberate and composed as she scanned the room. Our eyes met, and I stood slightly to signal my identity. She approached and extended her hand. "Mr. Riley." Her handshake was firm, her eyes assessing me with the practiced scrutiny of someone who evaluates people professionally. "Mrs. Wallace, thank you for coming. Please sit down." I gestured to the booth opposite me. "Can I order you something?" "Gin and tonic, please." She removed her coat but kept her handbag close, resting it on her lap like a shield. After the server departed with her order, Emily folded her hands on the table. "I assume this isn't about a potential business partnership between Sterling and Apex?" "No," I confirmed. "It's much more personal than that." I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a sealed envelope. "Before I explain further, I want to assure you that my intention tonight is not to cause you pain, but I believe you deserve to know the truth, just as I deserve to know." Her eyes flickered to the envelope, then back to my face. Something in her expression shifted, a tightening around the eyes, a barely perceptible tension in her jaw. "The truth about what exactly?" I slid the envelope across the table. "Your husband, David, has been having an affair with my wife, Sarah, for approximately 4 months. She didn't react immediately. No gasp, no widening of the eyes. She simply stared at me, then at the envelope, her expression carefully controlled. "That's quite an accusation, Mr. Riley." "It is, and I wouldn't make it without substantial evidence." She picked up the envelope but didn't open it. "Why are you telling me this? Why not simply confront your wife?" "Because this isn't just about infidelity," I explained. "The timing of their relationship coincides precisely with the Innovatech acquisition bid. Our companies are direct competitors in this deal." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "You think there's corporate espionage involved?" "I don't think. I know." I nodded at the envelope. "The private investigator documented 7 instances where my wife accessed confidential Sterling Corp data after meetings with your husband." Emily's composure cracked slightly then. Her fingers tightened around the envelope, and she took a deep breath before opening it. She examined each document methodically, her lawyer's mind processing the information with remarkable speed. When she finished, she carefully returned everything to the envelope. "I suspected something was wrong," she said quietly. "His late nights, unexplained absences. But I attributed it to the pressure of the Innovatech deal." She looked up at me. "He's been unusually confident about Apex's position, making bold predictions about their strategy's success." "Because he's had insider information," I confirmed. "His financial reports have been concerning," she continued almost to herself. "He started making large, risky investments recently, too confidently, as if he knew something others didn't. And then it clicked in my head. The Innovatech deal. I was the lead analyst on the project. All my calculations, bidding strategy, threshold amounts, everything was on my home server, which Sarah had access to. The server I had set up so we could both work from home during the pandemic and had never thought to restrict afterward because I trusted her completely. "He's not just sleeping with her," I said, and Emily looked at me already understanding. "He's using her to access my work, my analysis. This is industrial espionage." Emily's face hardened, her professional mask giving way to cold anger. "And she hissed, leaning forward, "is helping him to get her cut. This isn't just an affair, it's a conspiracy." That was the unbelievable part that had kept me awake for nights. We weren't betrayed just for passion or emotional connection. We were betrayed for money and power, using the dirtiest methods possible. Our spouses hadn't just broken our hearts. They had weaponized our trust against our careers. "What do you plan to do?" Emily asked, her voice steadier now, the initial shock giving way to analytical thinking. "That depends partially on you," I admitted. "I have enough evidence to destroy both their careers. possibly even pursue criminal charges for the corporate espionage. But those actions would have consequences for us too. Publicity, scrutiny, our names forever linked to the scandal. She nodded slowly. A more strategic approach might be preferable. My thoughts exactly. Emily studied me with renewed interest. You're surprisingly calm for a man who just discovered his wife's betrayal. Trust me, I'm not calm inside. I assured her. But acting emotionally would only give them an advantage. They've calculated everything else. They're probably calculating how we'll react when we inevitably find out. So we need to be unpredictable, she concluded. Precisely. As the evening progressed, we ordered food neither of us had much appetite for and began formulating a plan. Emily was remarkably quick-witted, her legal mind spotting potential pitfalls in my ideas and suggesting alternatives. By midnight, we had the outline of a strategy that would give us the upper hand. They think they're the only ones who can form alliances, Emily said as we prepared to leave. Let's show them how wrong they are. We exchanged phone numbers and agreed to meet again in 2 days. As I watched her walk away, her posture straight despite the crushing news she had received, I felt something unexpected, a flicker of admiration. Emily Wallace was not a woman who would collapse under betrayal. She was a formidable ally. Over the next week, Emily and I worked as a seamless team. I, as an analyst, found digital footprints. When Sarah accessed the server, which files she copied, where the information went. Emily, as a lawyer, compiled everything into clear evidence that could destroy them in court if necessary. We found proof that David had opened an offshore account in the Caymans, where Sarah's bonus would likely be deposited after the deal's successful completion. The amount, $2 million, made me physically ill when I saw it. 12 years of marriage had a price tag, apparently. They must think we're complete idiots, Emily said over dinner at my place as we reviewed the evidence. Her voice was steady, but I noticed her knuckles whitening around her wine glass. To think they could get away with this. That's their weakness, I replied, spreading additional documents across the dining table. They underestimate us because they're blinded by greed and lust. They don't see us as threats. What do you want to do? She asked. Go straight to the authorities? File for divorce? I shook my head. Too clean, too quick. I took a sip of my wine, feeling a cold clarity I hadn't experienced in days. They've planned meticulously for their future. Let's show them exactly what they're losing. The annual charity gala was approaching, the main social event for the city's financial elite. Every major player would be there, including the CEO of Innovatech. Sarah and David would certainly attend, likely maintaining professional distance in public while exchanging knowing glances across the room. They would be on top of the world, confident in their victory. We need to be there, Emily said, picking up my thought process with uncanny precision. Not to make a scene, but for them to see, for them to understand the game is over. I nodded slowly. The look on their faces when they see us together, when they realize we know, will be priceless, she finished. We spent the next few days preparing meticulously. Emily arranged for a trusted colleague to review our evidence and prepare the necessary legal documents. I worked with my IT team under the guise of a security audit, documenting every instance of unauthorized access to our servers. We were building our case carefully, ensuring that when we struck, the blow would be fatal to their plans. The night before the gala, I received a text from Sarah. Working late, don't wait up. I stared at those 6 casual words, amazed at how easily lies flowed from someone I had once believed incapable of deception. I texted back, no problem. Big day tomorrow with the gala. Get some rest when you can. Playing the oblivious husband was becoming second nature, a role I performed with increasing skill. When Sarah finally came home after midnight, I pretended to be asleep, listening to her shower before slipping into bed beside me. The scent of unfamiliar cologne clung to her despite the shower. I lay awake long after her breathing deepened into sleep, wondering how we had become such strangers. The evening of the gala arrived with perfect September weather, cool enough for the women to showcase their fall gowns, warm enough to enjoy the outdoor cocktail reception before the main event. Emily and I had arranged to arrive separately but at precisely the same time. She would come alone, having told David she had a court preparation that might make her late. I told Sarah I needed to meet with a client beforehand and would see her there. When my car pulled up to the red carpet leading into the Hawthorne Hotel's grand ballroom, I spotted Emily arriving simultaneously at the opposite end. She wore a stunning midnight blue gown that contrasted with her pale skin. Our timing was impeccable. Inside, the gala was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the city's financial elite as they mingled, champagne glasses in hand, engaging in the delicate dance of networking disguised as philanthropy. The chamber orchestra played something classical and unobtrusive in the background. I scanned the room and located Sarah almost immediately. She was stunning in a red dress I had never seen, laughing at something David Wallace had just said. They stood with casual, professional distance between them, but their body language betrayed their intimacy to anyone paying close attention. I made my way to the bar, feeling oddly calm despite the thundering of my heart. This was the moment we had carefully planned for. Emily appeared beside me moments later, ordering a martini with cool composure. "They're by the east window," she murmured, not looking in their direction. "They haven't seen us yet." "Good." I accepted my scotch from the bartender. "Shall we mingle for a while? Build suspense?" The corner of her mouth lifted slightly. "Always the strategist." We circulated through the room separately for almost an hour, speaking with colleagues and acquaintances, gradually working our way closer to where Sarah and David held court with a group of investors. I caught Sarah's eye briefly across the room. She smiled and waved, clearly not suspecting anything was amiss. I raised my glass in acknowledgement, my face a mask of normalcy. Finally, as the group around them dispersed slightly, Emily caught my eye and nodded subtly. It was time. We converged from different directions, approaching their table with deliberate casualness. Sarah saw me first, her smile genuine but confused as she noticed Emily walking alongside me. "Mark, you made it," she said, rising to kiss my cheek. "I was beginning to think your client meeting would never end." "Sarah," I replied, my voice betraying nothing of the storm inside me. "David, lovely evening, isn't it?" David's expression remained pleasant, though a slight furrow appeared between his brows as he processed the strange tableau before him, his professional rival and his wife apparently arriving together. "Emily," he said, the question evident in his tone, "I thought you'd be tied up with the Westmoreland case until late." "The preparation went more quickly than expected," Emily replied smoothly. "Mark was kind enough to accompany me when we ran into each other outside." Sarah's eyes darted between us, her smile faltering slightly. "You two know each other?" "We've become quite well acquainted recently," I said, watching her face carefully. A beat of silence followed. I could almost see the gears turning in both their heads. Confusion, doubt, the first flicker of alarm. "In fact," Emily added, her voice like silk over steel, "Mark and I discovered we have a great deal in common. Similar interests, shared concerns." She paused deliberately. "Mutual problems that need addressing." The color drained from David's face as understanding dawned. Sarah's smile disappeared completely, her eyes widening as she looked from Emily to me. "Mark," she began, her voice strained. "What's going on?" I smiled coldly. "That's exactly what I've been wondering for the past 4 months. What's going on?" But I think we all know the answer to that question now, don't we? David straightened, his businessman's instincts kicking in. "This isn't the place for whatever you're implying, Riley." "I'm not implying anything, Wallace," I replied calmly. "I'm stating facts. Facts documented by timestamps, access logs, and surveillance footage. Facts that would be of great interest to the SEC, the board at Apex, and of course, the leadership at Innovatech." Sarah grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my sleeve. "Mark, please," she hissed. "Not here." Emily's laugh was soft and without humor. "That's rich coming from you, Sarah. Suddenly concerned about propriety and discretion?" The look of shock on Sarah's face as she realized that Emily knew everything was almost worth the pain of the past 2 weeks. Almost. "We should take this somewhere private," David insisted, his eyes darting around to see if anyone was listening. "No need," I said. "Emily and I didn't come here to create a scene. We just wanted you both to know that we know everything. The affair, the corporate espionage, the offshore account." I leaned in slightly. "Everything." David's face had turned ashen. Sarah looked like she might be ill. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., My attorney's office, Emily stated, her professional demeanor firmly in place. Both of you. We'll discuss terms then. I didn't say another word. I simply took Emily's arm and said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "Shall we get some air? It seems a bit stifling in here." We left them standing there, shell-shocked, amid the glittering crowd and cheerful music. As we walked onto the terrace overlooking the city, Emily's composure cracked slightly. She trembled against me, reaction setting in after our performance. "Did you see their faces?" she whispered, a slight tremor in her voice. "They looked like they'd seen ghosts." "They have," I replied grimly. "The ghosts of their future careers. By this time tomorrow, they'll have lost everything they've been scheming for." Emily turned to face me, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "Mark, I need to ask you something. This revenge plan, is it just about punishing them, or is it about justice?" I considered her question carefully. Both. They betrayed us personally, but they also broke laws. They committed corporate espionage. They need to face consequences for all of it. She nodded slowly. "I agree, but I want to be clear about what happens after. When this is over, I'm walking away clean. New life, new start." "That's what I want too," I assured her. We stood in silence for a moment, two strangers bound by betrayal, looking out at the city that had suddenly become unfamiliar. "You know," Emily said softly, "in all this awfulness, there's one unexpected silver lining." "What's that?" "Meeting you." She glanced at me with surprising vulnerability. "It helps knowing I'm not facing this alone, that someone else understands exactly what this feels like." I felt an unexpected warmth in my chest. "I was thinking the same thing. You're not what I expected when I made that call to you." "What did you expect?" "Honestly? Tears, denial, maybe blind rage." She smiled slightly. "Those all happened. You just didn't see them. I had my breakdown in private, then pulled myself together before meeting you." "Efficient," I observed, returning her smile. "Always." As we stood together on that terrace, something shifted between us. In that moment of shared vulnerability, a connection formed. Not romantic, not yet, but something equally powerful. A mutual understanding that would become the foundation for whatever came next. Our phones buzzed simultaneously, Sarah and David, both demanding explanations. We exchanged glances and silently agreed to ignore them. Tonight was ours. Tomorrow would be soon enough to deliver the final blow. When I returned home that night, Sarah was waiting, pacing the living room, like a caged animal. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes wild with panic and anger. "What the hell was that, Mark?" she demanded the moment I walked in. "You and Emily Wallace? What game are you playing?" I set down my keys with deliberate calm. "No game, Sarah. Just revealing truths." "What truths? What are you talking about?" Her voice rose hysterically. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone." The audacity of her indignation was almost comical. "I embarrassed you? That's rich coming from the woman who's been sleeping with my business rival for months while stealing company information." Her face went completely white. "Mark, that's not—" "Don't," I interrupted sharply. "Don't insult my intelligence by denying it. I have proof. Everything. The hotel meetings, the server access logs, the offshore account David set up for your bonus after the deal closes." She sank onto the sofa, her legs seemingly unable to support her. How did I find out? Does it matter? The point is I know everything, and so does Emily." "She has no proof," Sarah said weakly. "She has everything I have, plus a team of lawyers preparing criminal charges." Sarah's breathing became rapid, panicked. "Criminal charges? Mark, please, you can't—" "I can," I said coldly. "But I might not, depending on what happens tomorrow. 9 a.m., Emily's attorney's office. You and David need to be there." "Or what?" "Or by noon, the SEC, both our boards and the Innovatec executive team will receive comprehensive documentation of your corporate espionage." She stared at me, searching for any sign of bluffing. Finding none, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Why did you do it, Sarah?" I asked, the question that had burned inside me for days finally escaping. 12 years together. Was it worth throwing away for him? She looked up, her eyes hollow. "It wasn't about him. Not really. It was about the opportunity." The money, I clarified. The future, she corrected. A partnership at Apex after the merger. A fresh start somewhere new. Something that was mine, not just being Mark Riley's brilliant wife. The revelation struck like a physical blow. All these years I thought we were partners, equals. I never realized she'd felt overshadowed. You could have left honestly, I said quietly, filed for divorce, started over legitimately, and walked away with half? That wouldn't have been enough for what I wanted. There it was, the naked truth. Greed, ambition, the willingness to destroy others to get ahead. I didn't recognize the woman sitting before me. 9 a.m. tomorrow, I repeated, turning toward the stairs. I'll sleep in the guest room. Mark, she called after me, a hint of desperation in her voice. This can't be the end. 12 years. I paused without turning. You ended it the moment you decided to betray not just me, but everything we built together. The next morning, I invited Sarah to meet at Emily's attorney's office for one last conversation. She arrived looking like she hadn't slept, her usually immaculate appearance slightly disheveled, eyes red-rimmed. Mark, please, she began the moment she walked in. Let me explain. Don't, I cut her off, leading her to the conference room where David already sat with Emily and her colleague. Save your energy. You'll need it. I placed 2 items on the table. A printout of the photograph of her laptop screen from that first night, and a folder of documents prepared by Emily. This is evidence of you and David's industrial espionage. It's enough to send you both to prison for a long time. She stared at the folder like it was a venomous snake about to strike. But that won't happen, I continued, if you meet our conditions. First, you submit your resignation to Nexus Logistics today, effective immediately. Second, you sign these divorce papers, which include a non-disclosure agreement and your renunciation of any claims to my business and assets. Third, David withdraws Apex Global's offer for Innovatech within 24 hours, citing internal reasons. She opened the folder with shaking hands, scanning the documents inside. Her face crumpled as she realized the thoroughness of our investigation. How could you think I would do this? She whispered. After 12 years. That's exactly what I've been asking myself, I interrupted. How could you? But the evidence is irrefutable. The only question now is whether you'll accept these terms or face criminal charges. You're ruining everything, she said, a hint of her usual confidence returning. Do you have any idea what this deal meant for my career? The partnership David promised? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. That's your concern? Your career? After betraying not just our marriage but professional ethics and possibly the law? I shook my head. You don't get it, Sarah. This isn't a negotiation. It's an ultimatum. I handed her a pen. Call David. You have 1 hour to decide. Then this folder goes to the Securities and Exchange Commission. She stared at me for a long moment as if seeing a stranger. Perhaps she was. The trusting husband she had manipulated no longer existed. Who are you? She asked quietly. Someone who finally sees you clearly, I answered. My phone rang 30 minutes later. It was David. His voice trembled with barely suppressed rage and helplessness. You've made your point, Riley. We'll meet your terms. All of them? I pressed. Your withdrawal from the Innovatech bid needs to be on my desk by noon tomorrow. You're destroying years of work, he hissed. No, David. You did that yourself when you decided to sleep with my wife and steal my company's information. Consider yourself lucky you're not facing criminal charges. There was a long silence. Then, the withdrawal letter will be delivered in the morning. After he hung up, I sat alone in my study, gazing out at the garden Sarah had meticulously designed when we first bought the house. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow, the victory providing none of the satisfaction I had anticipated. True to their word, Apex Global withdrew their offer for Innovatech the next day. The financial press buzzed with speculation about the sudden reversal, but no concrete explanation emerged. Sterling Corp easily won the bid, and my reputation as a strategic genius was cemented. Ironically, the very situation that could have destroyed my career ended up enhancing it. David's career, however, was effectively over. Such a high-profile failure, with no clear justification, was not something the cutthroat world of investment banking would forgive. Within weeks, he was asked to resign from Apex. Sarah vanished from my life after signing all the papers, moving across the country to Phoenix, where, I later heard, she took a position several levels below her previous role at a small logistics company. She lost everything: her job, her reputation, her husband, and the future she had schemed to create. I didn't feel joy at their downfall, just cold satisfaction from restored justice. I had avenged myself not as a jealous husband, but as a strategist. I didn't cause scenes. I stripped them of their future using their own weapons: ambition and greed. But that wasn't the end of the story. 3 months after the charity gala, I received a text message from Emily. "Coffee, I have news." We met at a small cafe downtown, away from the financial district where we might encounter mutual acquaintances. She looked different, more relaxed, her hair styled differently, wearing casual clothes instead of her usual corporate armor. "I've started my own practice," she announced as she stirred her cappuccino, "specializing in corporate ethics and whistleblower protection." I couldn't help but smile at the irony. "That seems appropriate." "I thought so." She studied me for a moment. "You look better, less devastated," I supplied. I was going to say haunted, but yes. "Getting through the holidays alone was harder than I expected," I admitted. "But I'm rebuilding. The Innovatech integration is keeping me busy." She nodded. "I heard Sterling's stock jumped significantly after the acquisition." "It did. I've been promoted to Chief Strategy Officer." "Congratulations. You deserve it." A comfortable silence fell between us. It wasn't awkward anymore. We'd shared something profound: the collapse of our old lives and the painful birth of new ones. "Do you ever think about them?" she asked suddenly. "Wonder where they ended up?" "Sometimes," I admitted. "Sarah's mother called me last month. Apparently, Sarah's working at a small logistics company in Phoenix, starting over." "And David?" "Last I heard, he was trying to get hired by firms in Chicago. No takers yet." Emily's lips curved slightly. "Justice." "Indeed." She hesitated, then reached across the table to touch my hand lightly. "I've been meaning to ask you something. The night of the gala, when we stood together facing them, how did you stay so calm?" I was falling apart inside. I thought about it. I wasn't calm inside, but I refused to let them see me break. They'd already taken enough from me. "You never appeared weak," she said. "Not for a moment." Our eyes met, and suddenly I realized something had shifted between us. We weren't just allies in revenge anymore. We were two people who had seen each other at their most vulnerable and still found strength. "Would you like to have dinner sometime?" I found myself asking. Not to discuss them or the past, just dinner. She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "I'd like that very much." As I walked her to her car, I thought about how strange life's paths can be. I'd lost a wife, but found something unexpected in the aftermath. Not a replacement. Emily was nothing like Sarah, and I was still healing, but a possibility, a door opening where I thought all doors had closed. The dinner with Emily turned into more dinners, then weekend outings, then holidays spent together. We moved slowly, cautiously, both of us scarred by betrayal and wary of rushing into another commitment. But there was something fundamentally different about our relationship compared to what I had with Sarah. With Emily, there was complete transparency from the beginning. We had seen each other at our worst moments and chosen to stay. There were no illusions, no pedestals, no carefully maintained facades. 6 months after the charity gala, Sterling Corp held its annual strategic planning retreat at a luxurious mountain resort. As the new chief strategy officer, I led several sessions on the Innovatech integration, which was already yielding results beyond our initial projections. The board was ecstatic. My professional reputation had never been stronger. During a break between sessions, I found a quiet spot on the terrace overlooking snow-capped mountains. The crisp air filled my lungs as I reflected on how much had changed in half a year. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Good luck with your presentation. Call me tonight?" A smile spread across my face. We had been seeing each other regularly for months now, taking things slowly, building something genuine from the ashes of our previous relationships. What had begun as an alliance forged in betrayal had evolved into something neither of us had expected: a connection based on mutual respect, shared values, and growing affection. My reverie was interrupted by Harold Winters, Sterling's CEO, who joined me on the terrace with a tumbler of whiskey in hand. "Mark," he nodded, coming to stand beside me. "Outstanding work on the Innovatech presentation. The board is impressed." "Thank you, sir." He studied me for a moment over the rim of his glass. "You know, when Apex mysteriously withdrew their bid last year, I had my suspicions." My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression neutral. "Oh?" "David Wallace was many things, but a quitter wasn't one of them." Winters took another sip of his whiskey. "Coincidentally, around that same time, I heard rumors that his wife had left him, and that your marriage had ended rather suddenly as well." I turned to face him directly. "Are you asking me something, Harold?" A knowing smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Not at all. Just making conversation." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Whatever happened, it worked out perfectly for Sterling. And for you." As he walked away, I realized that the financial world was smaller than I'd thought. People noticed patterns. It was our business after all. But without evidence, patterns remained just speculation. Our plan had worked flawlessly. That evening, I called Emily from my hotel room as promised. "How did it go?" she asked. "Extremely well, though I had an interesting conversation with my CEO today." I recounted the exchange with Winters, and Emily laughed softly. "Are you surprised? People gossip, but without proof, it's just talk." "True," I conceded. "How was your day?" "Productive. The Hamilton whistleblower case is moving forward, and I've been asked to give a lecture series on corporate ethics at Columbia Business School next semester." "That's fantastic, Em." We talked for nearly an hour about everything and nothing. Her cases, my projects, a documentary we'd both watched, plans for the weekend. Comfortable conversation that flowed effortlessly. When we finally said goodnight, I realized how different this relationship felt from my marriage to Sarah. There was no power struggle, no hidden agendas, no keeping score. Just two people genuinely enjoying each other's company. The annual financial awards dinner arrived 10 months after the scandal. As CSO at Sterling, my attendance was mandatory. I brought Emily as my date, our first official public appearance together in financial circles. We had been deliberately low-key about our relationship, avoiding the industry gossip mill as much as possible. But we were past hiding now. We were at the bar when a hush fell over one section of the crowd. I turned and froze. Sarah had entered the room on the arm of an older man I recognized as Gerald Thompson, CEO of a mid-tier shipping company based in Phoenix. "Are you okay?" Emily whispered, squeezing my hand. I realized with surprise that I was. "Perfectly fine," I answered honestly. Sarah spotted us almost immediately. She paled visibly, whispering something to Thompson before steering him in the opposite direction. "Should we leave?" Emily asked. "Not a chance," I replied. "We have nothing to hide. We've done nothing wrong." Throughout the evening, I caught Sarah watching us from across the room. Not with anger, but with something that looked almost like regret. During the awards presentation, Sterling Corp was recognized for the Innovatech integration, and I was called to the stage to accept. "Success isn't just about strategy," I said at the microphone, looking out at the sea of faces. "It's about integrity, about doing things the right way, even when no one is watching, especially when no one is watching." My eyes found Sarah in the crowd. She held my gaze for a moment, then looked away. After the ceremony, as Emily and I were preparing to leave, Sarah approached us alone. Thompson was engaged in conversation across the room. "Mark, Emily." She nodded stiffly. "Congratulations on the award." "Thank you," I said neutrally. An awkward silence fell. Sarah took a deep breath. "I wanted to say, what happened? I've had a lot of time to think." "Sarah," I interrupted gently, "it doesn't matter anymore." She blinked, surprised. "It doesn't?" "No," Emily answered for me, her voice calm. "We've moved on. You should too." Sarah looked between us, realization dawning. "You two are—" I simply nodded, taking Emily's hand. Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line. "I see. Well, good night then." As she walked away, Emily turned to me. "Are you all right?" I was surprised to discover that I truly was. "You know what's strange? A year ago, seeing her would have torn me apart. Now, I feel nothing but distance." That's not strange, Emily said softly. That's healing. We left the venue hand in hand, stepping into the cool night air. Behind us were the remnants of our old lives. Ahead was something new, something we were building deliberately, with eyes wide open. What are you thinking about? Emily asked as we walked to the car. Chess, I replied with a small smile, and how sometimes losing important pieces forces you to develop a better strategy. She laughed, the sound clear in the night air. Is that what we're doing? Developing a better strategy? I stopped, turning to face her under the streetlight. I think we're starting a whole new game. 2 years to the day after I discovered Sarah's betrayal, I asked Emily to marry me. We were hiking in the mountains, far from the corporate world we both still navigated successfully, but with more balanced perspectives. I had planned an elaborate proposal, but when we reached the summit and looked out over the spectacular valley below, the rehearsed speech fell away. Instead, I simply took the ring from my pocket and told her the truth, that she had helped me rebuild not just my life, but my capacity to trust again. Are you sure? She asked, her eyes searching mine. After everything we've been through? Because of everything we've been through, I corrected her. We started with complete honesty about the worst parts of our lives. Everything since then has been built on that foundation. She said yes. We were married 6 months later in a small ceremony attended only by close friends and family. No one from our former lives was present. Sarah sent a card, which I opened with Emily beside me. Inside was a simple note. Congratulations. I'm glad you found happiness. I'm still working on mine. David Wallace had left the country entirely, taking a position with a small firm in Singapore, effectively exiling himself from the financial circles where his reputation was irreparably damaged. The scandal had faded from industry gossip, replaced by newer, more salacious stories. Our revenge, so all-consuming at the time, had become simply a chapter in our histories, not the defining story. On our first anniversary, Emily and I sat on the terrace of our new home, sharing a bottle of wine as the sun set. She had recently won a landmark whistleblower protection case that would change how financial institutions handled internal reports of misconduct. I had just completed the successful spin-off of Innovatech's consumer division, generating billions in shareholder value. Do you ever regret how we handled it? Emily asked suddenly. The revenge? I considered the question carefully. No. They made calculated choices to betray us and break the law. They faced calculated consequences. She nodded slowly. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if we just exposed them publicly from the start. It would have damaged us too, I reminded her. Our approach protected our reputations and careers while still ensuring justice. True. She twirled her wine glass thoughtfully. Though I'm not sure it was just about protecting ourselves. There was something satisfying about watching them realize they'd lost everything. There was, I admitted, but that's not the part I think about anymore. What do you think about? I reached for her hand. That something good came from something terrible. That's rare in life. She smiled, lacing her fingers with mine. Very rare. The ultimate revenge against those who tried to destroy us wasn't just exposing their betrayal. It was rebuilding something better from the wreckage they left behind. It was standing tall when they expected us to crumble. It was finding joy when they dealt us pain. It was moving forward while they remained trapped in the consequences of their actions. As Emily and I sat together watching the stars appear one by one, I felt the final pieces of anger and resentment dissolve. Sarah and David had aimed to take everything from me, my career, my dignity, my future. Instead, their actions had led me to a life more genuine than the one I'd lost. They say living well is the best revenge. But I'd add this, living truthfully is the best redemption. Sarah and David's deception had cost them everything. Emily and I, bound initially by betrayal, had found something rare and precious. A relationship built on complete honesty from the very beginning. No secrets, no lies, no hidden agendas, just truth, with all its sharp edges and beautiful clarity. And in that truth, we found our real revenge and our real reward. If you like this story, please click the hype button. This video deserves to be popular. Have a nice rest.